Hello. Do you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Who am I speaking to?
Brianna, Washington.
Oh, okay. Hi, Brianna. Um, so I can't remember if we had anyone else scheduled for this session, but we'll wait a second to see if they join. Um,
Um, we do. His name is Jack D, I believe. I'm just
oh,
looking at it now.
right. We already had a session, Jack and I.
Oh,
So,
okay.
we'll just get started then.
Okay.
Um, I Okay, so we are doing virtue ethics, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you have any questions for me before we get started?
No, not that I can think of right now, but I'm sure throughout the discussion I probably will.
Okay. Okay. So to get started, just in your own words, how would you summarize this chapter? How would you define virtue ethics?
I think if because I've read it twice and then I listened to your lecture, and then I also have like a thing of watching Crash Course. So combining all of those, I think it just states that like basically what a virtuous person is that someone who does the right things in all situations. So it's you looking up to a virtuous person, or you trying to be a moral exemplar. I believe that that's what they called it. So it's just doing what's right in almost every situation, and other people look to you to also follow what you're doing.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, sort of like we're defining what we should do based on this idea of what a virtuous person would do in that situation. Something like that, right?
Yes.
So, do you buy this theory? And if you do, what do you think are like its advantages? Like, what's the main reason for having a theory like this?
I want to say that I do buy it, but I think it's so vague that it can be interpreted in so many ways because who there's not one person that you can look to that is quote unquote virtuous. I think everybody has their right and wrong moments, and like based off the other chapters we discussed like divine command theory, like you would think that God is, if you believe in it, you would think that God creates these morals that we follow, but
Uh huh.
what's to determine what was morally right? Like someone had to determine that. So if you're following those things that are necessarily right, where'd you get it from? And why is it right? Like there's nothing to explain what actually makes it right. So I want to buy into it that everyone strives to be virtuous, but I just don't know where the origin comes from. Because if I say that stealing is wrong, and so I never steal, but someone says like stealing is right because my baby is hungry, I want to believe both, but that doesn't make you a less of a virtuous person because you stole to feed your baby, although it technically is wrong, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I typed out an argument based on what you first said. That what a virtuous person is vague, right?
Yes.
And I do think that's one of the major criticisms of this theory. The book definitely elaborates on this idea of the vagueness. And you use the analogy that it's sort of like divine command theory. I guess so. Is the analogy there something like that? So I guess the divine command theorist thinks that God is the most virtuous of all. So
Hmm.
we're trying to be like God. We're trying to follow whatever God would do, something like that. But so in that way, a virtue theory might have some similarities to a divine command theory. But you were also saying that in the first chapter there were these criticisms of like, well, God is doing the right thing, but like what makes the right thing kind of questions, right?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So I definitely see where you're coming from here. So do you think there's any way to save virtue theory, to rescue it from this kind of criticism? Like, is there any way to salvage something?
I would think so if someone was able to, or a group of people were able to explain a moral that is right because it's right, not because someone's doing it. So you're telling me that stealing is wrong because stealing is wrong, but you have to explain to someone who wants to believe in virtue theory why stealing is wrong. Stealing can't be wrong just because people do it or don't do it. There has to be more of an explanation to say that a certain moral is immoral or moral based off of not, it can't be based off of what somebody will or would not do.
Okay. Yeah. So there's this. Yeah, you're definitely hitting on a different point that the book makes, which is something like it's something like saying that it's right because the virtuous person does it, but why, like, shouldn't it be the other way around? Shouldn't the virtuous person do it because it's right?
Right.
That kind
Hmm.
of thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're inclined to think that a virtuous person would do their duties, but those duties are something that we have to define those duties as good as good things to do first. That's the first step. Does that mean, did you have some sympathies with some of the chapters that were more about duty? So like the previous chapter to this was the prima facie duties chapter, where they listed some of those duties. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think that chapter was really good at giving kind of like grace, like you're able to balance, you're picking what needs to be done per case, like per case basis, you're able to pick, and it's not just one thing and then you're condemned. It's giving you the space to be free to make choices that you see as fit, and not so clear cut that if you do this, then you're not virtuous. That's really a hard label to place on somebody, or to even give someone the title of being virtuous. They might not even strive to be that. So it's really hard to be a virtuous person. I think that the prima facie duty was like a lot better at um, like the free will of people, or the autonomy to do what you want to do, and allowing you the space to do so.
Okay. So maybe could we frame, like, could we make a version of virtue ethics
Okay.
based on that? So it might be something like the virtuous person is the person who properly fulfills their prima facie duties. Something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that ties in both of them.
Yeah. And so it's like a chicken and the egg kind of problem. Cause you could, it, in some way, we could also frame it like this, where we would say, oops, the person who properly fulfills their moral duties is the virtuous person.
Mhm.
But that gets back to what we were just talking about, where we have this hunch that the duties come first, right? The duties have to define the virtue.
Yes.
Yeah, but I like that. I like that we can sort of think of them in terms of each other. That's cool too. Let's go back. I was just thinking about this first argument we were making about the vagueness. Do you think it's do you think that an ethical theory could be vague about certain things?
I think they have room to be, but because it's so, what is the word I'm looking for? It's like it's as if it's kind of like a, and I'm using this term lightly, like a Bible, right? Like these are the things you should do. So should there be room for, like, should there be gray area? I want to say yes, but I don't think there should be, especially when you're telling people right and wrong. Like if you're going to tell me that I'm right or I'm wrong, I need you to be very certain. So having gray area in that, or being vague and allowing me to do some things, but allowing somebody else to do some things, I want to be more inclined to say no, it should not be vague.
Okay. Yeah, because what you're getting at is that you actually have to make a decision. So you do want like an answer to that decision in any given case, not some vague grayness about it.
Yes, and it's kind of like, if you don't mind, I'm just going to tie it into the scenario of like, they said when, if you like walk outside of a bar and there's an old lady being mugged, um, if you jump right into it, it's like, oh, you might be a courageous person. If you don't jump into it, then you could be looked at as a coward. But if you, not courageous, but if I'm sorry, if you jump straight into it, you're being reckless. If you kind of wait around to assess the situation, then you're right in between, like that golden area where you're able to um, it's more of like a courageous area. But if you do nothing, then you're a coward. But on that note, it's like, who determines that? Who determines that I'm a coward because I waited, or because I'm reckless because I jumped into it? It's like it's so much gray area with this theory that you want me to follow it, but I don't know what to follow per case, because another case could tell me it's the opposite way around.
Yeah. So there's a few points there. So one point you're making, it sounds like making the decision in the moment on a case by case basis is almost impossible. Because it's almost like in the scenario you're describing, it's like do you even have time to consider what to do?
Hmm.
And so in a case like that, it's like, well, it's just better to have a rule because you don't have to think about the rule. You just do the rule because and that way you're not gonna like be caught in this moment where you don't know what to do or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's like a practical benefit of establishing like a hard rule for those cases. So my thinking, I think that there are definitely cases like that where it's more black and white. Do you think though that do you think some cases are grayer than others? So like a black and white case might be something like you don't kill somebody for fun. Nobody wants to murder for fun. But a more gray case would be something like killing somebody who is in self-defense, but maybe you could have run away, or maybe you could have knocked them out instead of killing them, or maybe you could have like tied them up instead of killing them. Like a more gray case, like self-defense, would be grayer than killing somebody for fun. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with what you said, because there is a gray area. There would be a gray area in that. But if you have a theory that says it's right or it's wrong, there is no middle, then that's the struggle of wanting to accept what wanting to accept this theory as being something that you can fulfill. Because if I it's like, do I have time to explain, and who am I explaining to? Because if I'm saying like, oh, I killed them because, who do I explain that to? And then I'm looking for that person to say I'm right or wrong, but who gave you the right to say that I'm right or wrong?
Yeah, so it becomes complicated quickly, I guess.
Very.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, it strikes me that it strikes me that then you're less inclined to you're less inclined to think that this virtuous thing can really um can really get off the ground socially. Like it you have to if you're telling somebody something like, well, I was trying to find the golden mean
Hmm.
between, so the I was trying to do the virtuous thing in the middle between the two vices, and so that's why I did what I did. And then they can always sort of question you and be like, well, why did you choose that? You could have chose, why did you choose this instead of this or this or this or like, yeah, they're always going to be able to, there's always that wiggle room to question it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think in the book they made it a point to say that that's kind of like an area of improvement, or you're always educating yourself. So it's not so bad that someone is questioning you. It's just, I think the part that maybe I was stuck on was just the, you're virtuous or you're not, or you're right or you're wrong. But if I'm okay with being questioned and I'm okay with educating myself, then I'm always continuing to fight for better. I think that's a good thing about this theory, is that there is room for education. There is room for improvement and to be more knowledgeable, so that you're striving to ultimately be virtuous. I just don't believe that there's a virtuous person. Because then does that mean that once you become that virtuous person, are you done educating yourself? Are you done trying to elevate yourself to be more virtuous? Because how can you be more virtuous if you are the virtuous person?
Okay. So it's, yeah. So being a virtuous person is like it's almost like an unstable state or something like that, because even the
Okay.
virtuous person can get better at what they're doing or something like that.
Okay. That's I guess that was, I was trying to pose it as a question, but it didn't come out that way. But that's what I was wondering, is does that virtuous person, do they continue to build themselves, or is that like, once you've gotten that title, you're done?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I guess you could, I guess it's imaginable that maybe there is like this, maybe all there's all these rules and there's all these like things to figure out, but maybe there's at least like one person who actually has come the closest to being the best, and maybe they truly have figured it out, I guess. But it's like hitting the it's like hitting the bullseye, right? It's a very it's very hard to hit the bullseye, and it's easy to mess up again after hitting the bullseye. So maybe that person, maybe that person has to find the bullseye first of all, and then like maintain their skills as like a habit forming thing where
Mhm.
they can't just find virtue and then it's over. They have to like constantly be vigilant about maintaining their virtue, something like that. Does that
Yeah, that
seem?
seems very tiring, to always be looking for your bullseye. Like, I think sometimes if we're in like a situation where we're inclined to jump in and react, maybe it's okay to just not be the first person. Like maybe it's okay to just be kind of in the crowd. Does that virtuous person always have to be the first person? Always has to be the one that people look up to? That seems very tiring.
It certainly seems like, yeah, it's possibly quite demanding of a person.
Right.
Yeah. We can give an an example. Let's see if anything comes to mind. Well, so like one example, one of the virtues could be something like moderation. That's a
Okay.
famous virtue. So like we could talk about like food or something. So it's like it's not good to eat too little because then you'll starve, but it's also not good to eat too much because that's unhealthy as well, right? So the challenge then is to find that sweet spot in the middle between too much and too little, like the perfect spot of moderation, and then to keep that, like to find your diet and then keep it. And it is hard, right? Like people really struggle with that exact thing. It's hard to know like when enough is enough, and then like maintaining it requires discipline and habit, and it's easy to like have cheat days or something.
Mhm.
And that's just we're just talking about one of the virtues, right? Which is like a simple one, like how much to eat. But then there's all these other virtues to consider. Gets really complicated really fast. I don't know. What do you think of that example?
It's definitely one of the virtues because I think it was gluttony on there, and I was like, uh-oh, eating too much. But I guess my question to that would be if I'm eating at home and no one sees how much food I'm eating, but then I go out into public and I claim to be this virtuous person, um, who's to say that it's like authentic, right? Like I can come out with this face of, oh, I eat a very strict diet. Anytime you see my plate, it's very strict. But when I'm at home, I eat very savagely. Would I still be considered a virtuous person to other people?
Well, presumably that's what we call a hypocrite, right?
Right.
They're do as I say, not as I do, or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, those people exist for sure. Um, so
So I guess with that example, if that was the case for somebody and other people were looking up to that person, like you are my virtuous person, then you're striving for something that's not even real, which is unfair.
yeah, that's a good point. Is that virtuous person might be a fraud all along. Yeah, so it's like a
And I've
false
seen that.
idol or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, quite possible. So, well, that's some good critiques. Any other thoughts you had? I was gonna ask. I've forgotten your major, so did you think of any ways to apply stuff like this to your major or the profession that you'll have after you graduate?
So my major is nursing. I'm applying to the registered nursing program this coming up fall. Um, so I thought about it, but because I was in the space of like, I want to believe virtue ethics, I was thinking in the terms of like a nurse that every time you see her, she's like super nice. She's very personable. She's always willing to help you, right? And so as a newcomer, I would be looking up to her. Like that's somebody that I want to like attach my wheels to and, and learn to be like her. But then when she leaves work, she's like a maniac on the roads or she's very mean to her family. Like So I'm looking up to someone who I see as, you know, that's the face that you show me that you're a very virtuous person. You're really nice, but you cut people off. You, you know, you're not nice. You don't help out. And so I'm just like, I don't, it's like I want to believe that there are virtuous people, but that would require me to follow you all around.
Okay.
Like not just see you in one setting because you're forced to be nice at work, kinda. But when you're on your free time, how do you act? Because I think that that would be a true virtuous person, one that does nice things even when no one's looking and when no one's judging them.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like a person could be really courageous, but not generous, right?
Mhm.
Or like a person could have one virtue, but not another virtue. And you're pointing out that like this person could be they could be the face of nursing at work, but they actually could have a quite bad ethic at home, or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's definitely possible. I guess one one obvious thing from that, could it be that like could we separate out things and just acknowledge like, okay, they're a good nurse, and I'm going to try to be a good nurse like them. But they're a bad wife or a bad husband or something. And I'm not going to follow them home. I'm gonna follow what they do at work because that's good, but not the rest of the stuff. Can do you think there's an option where we like do that? What do you think?
That option would be great to have because you can put on multiple faces and it doesn't make you any less of a person. I think that's what the virtue theory needs is that in there. Like it's possible for someone to be a, you know, a great mom but maybe a mean teacher, or maybe she's a good daughter but you know she's whatever. Like having being able to be multiple people and be good in multiple areas, but you don't have to be good or virtuous in all of them. That would be like giving grace to people to be a person.
Sure, sure. Okay. Well, that yeah, and we can definitely acknowledge that people are there's probably nobody who's the perfect person. So maybe uh maybe we
Well,
can
divine
just
command theory says that there is one that exists.
oh sure, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
we can we can put that in there as well. But yeah, there's there's a possibility of like a ideal person if we are going to adopt that kind of theological view for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you have any other thoughts or questions? I was thinking we could probably wrap it up.
I just have one question for
Okay.
our oh, I just had it pulled up here. For our journal, is it something similar to this argument that we have here? Is this something that we would be putting on for each chapter? The argument that we have, like um, the one that we have here, the point one, two, and three?
Yeah. So the test is going to be like the quizzes.
Okay.
If you do the quizzes, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that doing the quizzes is good prep for the test, because I actually think the quizzes are harder than the test. And then the journal, the prep for the journal would be to it's definitely to make arguments like we're trying to make here, that that are like valid arguments that actually respond to the theory. So it's going to be it's written, right? So you're going to type out your arguments, and there's two sections to the journal. I think one section is based on the theories, so going through the theories and giving pros and cons, and then Then the second session is going to be applying to the movie that I have on the syllabus. So that's basic. It's writing out arguments. And yeah, if the closer the arguments are to your to the closer the arguments are to the second chapter of the book, which is what I'm trying to do with this right here, right? I'm trying to do something like break it down into valid premises and a conclusion. The closer it is to that, the better it'll be. Yeah. Does that cover everything? Every
Yeah,
part of your question?
100%. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay. Sounds good. And oh, you also were, I think, I may be mistaken, but were you telling me that you had issues with the lockdown browser and such? Was that you, or I can't remember.
Um, I did have issues, but I don't think I emailed you about them, or maybe I did. I'm not sure. It's a little weird. The lockdown browser is weird, but you just got to play
Okay.
with it, and it works.
Okay, so
I'm fine.
you got it to work. Okay.
Yeah, mine works. It's okay. It's not too much to be complaining about.
Okay. Okay, that's good. I just wanted to make sure because I couldn't remember if you were one of the ones who had asked me about it. All right. Well,
So,
we'll cut it there as long as you don't have any other
okay.
questions.
No,
So,
thank you so much, and I guess I'll see you for moral problems.
yeah, whichever one you signed up
Okay.
for. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. See you later. Have a good night.
You too.